Hi everyone, welcome to our YouTube Live today. We got so many requests to demonstrate how to do layer iron-on after I demonstrated how to use the EasyPress. So today I'm so excited to show you how to do a layered iron-on project on a t-shirt. So what we're going to go over today is kind of the different layering techniques, plus I have a ton of tips and tricks on how to be successful when using multiple layers of iron-on. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Karley Hall and I am a project designer at Cricut. So I get to craft all day and it's the best job ever. We are going to definitely take questions at the end of the segment. So for about 5 minutes or so, I'm going to be demoing how to do this project. And while I'm doing the project, if you can think of some specific questions about how to layer and what temperatures to use, I will be answering those at the end. So let's get started with demonstrating the iron-on. If you don't already have an EasyPress, I'm going to tell you how to use it because it is so easy and you're going to love it. Who out there has an EasyPress? I'm really curious to see which of our viewers actually already own one and who's tried layering with iron-on before. Alrighty, so while you're thinking of those answers and those questions, I'm going to preheat our EasyPress. So step one, you just turn it on. It'll flash the temperature right in front of you. And if you don't know what setting to use, you can visit cricut.com/ep-settings, and that has a list of all of the different temperature settings that you can think of. We're going to go ahead and set this to 320 degrees. And you just click until you get the desired temperature. And then we're going to press it for 20 seconds. So I'm going to set our timer to 20 seconds. While that's heating up, make sure that you check back on those settings because we do continually update our information. And so when we add a new material or we add a new different type of product, we will update those settings so you have everything up to date. I've already cut my image on our Cricut, so I have a base layer, I have a heart, and then I have a beeline. We thought this would be perfect for Valentine's Day. You can see the 3 layers already cut out, and we're going to apply them to this shirt right here. So kind of the prepping stage of this all, when you have your t-shirt, a pro tip that we use at Cricut is that to find the center of your shirt, you can actually just fold the shirt in half to find your center point. And then while the EasyPress is still heating up, it's not completely heated just yet, we can take it and run it down the center of the shirt. And it's just hot enough to leave a crease in the center of the shirt. Also another tip, if you live in a really humid or moist area with a lot of moisture in the air, we definitely would recommend you to do a light press on your shirt to kind of release any of the moisture out of your shirt. So I did that a little backwards because now my crease is going to be out. But if you just press this for about 5 seconds, it's really going to take out the moisture, and that's going to set you up for success because we need there to be no moisture in order for that iron-on to actually adhere to your shirt. You can see also my prep station. Underneath this t-shirt, I have a plush towel and it's folded in half and then half again. And the one thing that we want to call out here is that when you're using a hard surface to iron on, we want to make sure that it's a wood material or a countertop surface. We wouldn't recommend using a plastic type of table or an ironing board. Hard surfaces like your kitchen counter or laundry room counter are great. And then you'll just protect that surface by using a plush towel folded in half and half again, and make sure to avoid any ribbing or decorative elements when you're ironing onto that surface. Okay, so now back to where I was, and there we have our EasyPress alerting me that it's all set up. You can kind of still see my crease in my shirt, but I'm going to go over that just once more. Once you decide where you want it, if it's central to your shirt, again, you're just going to fold it in half. And then this way, you can find a good center point and just run your EasyPress along the center to get that crease. Alrighty. So if you can see here, I have my crease down the center of my shirt, just about center. And we're going to start positioning our iron-on. So the first layer is our scalloped heart. I'm just going to use that center line as my basis. And if you are a perfectionist like me, you can actually fold it right underneath the armpit to get a perpendicular line this way so that you can line it up right on top. But for this, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And now we're going to get into how to use the different layering techniques when you're tacking down iron-on. All right, so since we're just tacking this down, we're going to use the settings for the glitter iron-on. We set it to 320 degrees for 20 seconds because that's what glitter iron-on calls for. We are doing light iron-on, but I'll show you how to set all that up. So we're going to take our EasyPress, check to make sure the settings are still correct, and then we're going to tack it in place for 3 to 5 seconds. So I'm just going to gently press and then just count in my head for 5 seconds and pull it off. We're going to hot peel this off, and we're just tacking our material right in place. And then we're going to take our next layer and center that right on there. And then you can see that there's a little bit of area exposed. So we're going to protect that at the very end, but we're just going to tack this in place again for 3 to 5 seconds. Do a hot peel there. And then we're going to put the lettering right on here. And then just tack this down for 3 to 5 seconds. All right, then we're going to peel this off. Now, referring back to that setting sheet on cricut.com/EP-settings, which we've linked below for you. Again, it calls for 320 degrees for 20 seconds for our glitter iron-on, our top layer. We're going to put the big protective sheet back over our entire image so that the EasyPress doesn't come in contact with any of our layers of iron-on. So we're going to put it on here. And now we're going to use a timer and set that for 20 seconds. So layering is really, really easy when you know how to do it, especially when you're just tacking down those layers. It really sets you up for success, and it's a lot quicker than going ahead and scorching your iron-on for the full 20 seconds. So that's going to ding. And then I can do a hot peel with glitter iron-on, so I'm just going to pull this right off to reveal our adorable image. And then since we're washing our material and we're going to be wearing this, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to press the back of the image for the exact same setting that's recommended for the front. And that way it really, really allows the glue to adhere to my material and won't peel off in the wash. Okay, have you guys been thinking of layering questions? Be sure to ask away in the comments because I'm going to be answering those soon. Alrighty, and then we just set it back in its protective base. We can turn that off and flip it over to reveal our super cute shirt. There we go. Alrighty, so for glitter iron-on, we did a hot peel, but pay attention because if you're using foil or holographic iron-on, we want to let it cool before peeling off that protective lining. So like I mentioned for glitter, you don't have to let it cool, but there's other heat sensitive ones that you want to make sure that you're paying attention to. Alrighty, so we are all done. That's it. Iron-on is so easy. And just to recap, I layered today with Cricut Light, so I have 2 different colors of Cricut Light iron-on and then a glitter iron-on, and I just put that onto a cotton polyester blend t-shirt. But you can use so many types of Cricut iron-on and many different types of fabric. So just make sure when you layer with iron-on, we recommend that you use holographic foil and glitter for the top layer only. You can see that for my base, I used the light iron-on. And that will set you up for the best projects. All right, I promised you that I would answer your questions. I know that demo was super short and sweet, so now let's take some questions. I'm gonna have Keston read those out to me so that I can get them real time and we can answer any of those questions that you may have.
Okay, we have a question from Peaches. She wants to know, can you layer glitter on top of glitter?
All right, so we have a question from Peaches asking if you can layer glitter on top of glitter. That's a great question. I would recommend not to layer glitter on glitter because it doesn't necessarily adhere permanently. So the best way to adhere your iron-on is to adhere glitter to a surface like your t-shirt or other safe surface, or layer that glitter onto Cricut Iron-on light material. And that will keep a great hold and last for many, many washes.
Okay, we have another question from P. Davis. She's new and she wonders if the EasyPress is better than a household item.
Oh, perfect.
Like
So,
an iron.
okay, so we have a question from P. Davis, and she is asking if the EasyPress is better than a household iron. And I would say yes, 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 hands down, yes. So I have used an iron, I've used a commercial heat press, and I am a huge fan of the Cricut EasyPress. And the reason that I love the EasyPress in comparison to an iron is because it has the convenience of an iron. It heats up just as fast as an iron, but you have actual control of the temperature, and it doesn't only heat just one area. So in an iron, the heat is concentrated to different areas. On the EasyPress, the heat is evenly distributed across the entire plane, and that way you get a really, really good consistent heating base. Also, I know that you didn't ask this, P. Davis, but with an EasyPress, it heats up so much faster than a commercial heat press. So you're getting able to do your project so much faster because you're not waiting around for your heat press to heat up.
Okay, the next question comes from Kathy. She wants to know if there is an iron-on transfer paper.
Okay, so Kathy asked a good question. Is there an iron-on transfer paper? So this is confusing because if you hear people in the industry, there's a lot of confusion between HTV, so heat transfer vinyl, which is what we consider iron-on at Cricut, and vinyl. With iron-on, you don't need a transfer paper because when you cut it and you weed it, you actually are left with this carrier sheet, which is known as your transfer paper. With vinyl, when you cut it, you actually have to put a transfer tape on there. But with iron-on, you have a sheet like this. When you cut your image, it'll cut out your heart, you'll weed away the excess, and you'll be left with this clear film. Everything that you're gonna iron on will be on this film, and like you saw, I just put it directly on there and then peeled this away. So there's no need for any other transfer tape at all. Everything comes right on this roll. All you need is a surface and an EasyPress to make those beautiful projects.
Awesome. Brandy has a question. She says, I'm new and was wondering if it's better to keep your vinyl iron-on rolled, or can we lay it out flat?
Okay, Brenda has a question about how to store your iron-on. Brandy, sorry. Brandy has a question about how to store your iron-on material. So it comes in rolls. I store it directly on the roll. I just stick it away in a drawer, but it doesn't do any harm if you want to store it flat. So whatever is better for your storage purposes, you can store it flat, keep it on a roll. We just want you using that iron-on to make different projects.
Okay, Corrine has a question. Can you use glitter vinyl on plush toys?
Okay, so Corinne has a question about using glitter iron-on on plush toys. If you know me, you know I've put iron-on on everything. I have monogrammed different toys. The only thing about when you're ironing onto or using EasyPress onto an actual toy is the surface is a little wonky. So make sure that if you're using an EasyPress that you're pressing it down as flat as you can to really adhere to the surface so that you actually get the good longevity out of our material onto that toy. But if it's flat enough to where you can iron it on, or if you're sewing that toy and you are going to iron on the pieces before you sew it, you absolutely can put it on there and then you can throw it in the wash and wash it so that it's nice and clean and it will not peel.
Okay, next question. This is from Shanta. She wants to know, how do you layer in Design Space?
Okay, so Shanta has a question about Design Space and how do you layer in Design Space? That's a great question. So when you're a new Cricut user, there are so many things that you are trying to learn and you want to get to all those different craft projects. So today I showed how to layer this Be Mine image. when you design an image, a lot of different images come with layers. So if you look on the right-hand panel, if you're using a desktop computer, they'll all be broken up and show different layers. All those layers are going to be cut on different colors. And if you decide to use iron-on with those different colors, you can then cut the dark pink, apply it first, the light pink, and then the silver glitter. This can also be a paper project. I know we're going over iron-on today, but I could have also cut all 3 of these layers in paper and then glue them down to a card. So Design Space makes it really easy that we break everything up so that you can cut it in those assigned colors and then just apply it. Remember, if you're using iron-on, make sure that you mirror our images before you cut them so that you have the reverse and then you put it onto your image so that it's right side up.
Okay, another question. Someone loves your hat, by the way.
Thank you.
Question is, what materials should we not use with iron-on?
Okay, so what material should we not use with iron-on? So like I said, I iron on to everything, but make sure you're testing your surfaces first. So if it can't withstand heat like a plastic or a vinyl material, I know that a really different trend right now is those plastic purses. If you can't apply heat to it, then iron-on probably shouldn't go on it. So just make sure that you're reading the different material list. Anything that's a fabric based, we have the heat settings for so you don't scorch your material, but you want to make sure that you pay attention to what material you're using, and then if it melts, stay away from iron-on with that.
One last thing, Karley, will you just reemphasize what are the iron-on that should be at the top layer when you're layering?
Yes, of course. So when you're ironing on, question about what should be on the top. With iron-on light material, so iron-on light is our any color material. That can be layered on top of each other and over. You can have as many layers as you think is reasonable. But the top layer, we recommend that you stick to glitter, holographic, and foil. And the reason being is those are a little bit more sensitive, and with glitter, things don't adhere to it as well. So we want to make sure that you leave those for the dedicated top layer and then everything else beneath it. Any other questions? All right, so I think that wraps up our questions. If you guys have more questions, please make sure to leave comments and we'll get those answered. And again, the URL for the settings for our EasyPress will be linked at the bottom, as well as several other helpful links so that you can check those out and get set up for success for layering with iron-on. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be notified of our future tutorials like today's. And we're so excited to see what you guys want to learn. And that's it for today. Have a good one.